All
I
right.
was confused with that.
We tried it. We're trying new things here. We're trying to get fancy. This is Around the Gridiron. People that are listening on the podcast have no idea what's going on, so everything's as good as normal. I'm here with my man Austin. Austin, how you doing?
Good. Happy to be back. Had a little hiatus for a bit, but got some new stories to talk about, and I'm getting closer to draft time. So exciting time of the year.
Yeah, dude. It's good times. Got a little bogged down with the day job. We worked for a company. We went public
Yeah,
on
congratulations. That's awesome.
thanks. Yeah, last Friday. So a lot of work going into that. So really excited. Hopefully, good things that come there. But the more exciting stuff here, we're talking about football. I think we want to dive in and talk about pro days. A while back, Marlon Humphrey had made a comment, and I kind of agreed with him that the whole quarterback in t-shirt and shorts at a pro day, not really that cool, but people seem to love it. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah. Again, I think with every college player, about 80% of the evaluation is their game film, and that's their biggest piece of the resume. With quarterbacks specifically at pro days, it's more so, can they command a group of guys and, go through the script, really just be a leader, get everybody lined up, call out the plays, kind of drive down the field, as you would in a game scenario. You're expected to complete about 100% when you're on air. So it's really more so, how does the ball look coming out of their hand? Is there some velocity? Can they throw, running to their left or rolling to their left if they're a righty, or, vice versa if they're a lefty? Can they do the deep out from the opposite hash? What's their go ball look like? But other than that, it's really just, seeing, how they command themselves, and then more so, making sure they pass the eye test. When you're talking to them, doing the interviews afterwards, is this a person that can really gel with our franchise and be a leader of our locker room? Is really the bigger piece than just the whole throwing part. From what I've been able to gather over the last
Yeah,
couple of years. But any other thoughts on that?
dude, I hate it. And I think so I'll just go back. Like, do you remember Jamarcus Russell? And everyone's like, this guy can throw it, 80 yards from his knees or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
again, just starting from there, like there's always this random stuff that people get so excited, like, oh, Uncle Rico, you could throw it.
throw the ball over the mountain
Yeah,
for
throw it over
20
the
miles.
mountain.
I do remember back when Johnny Manziel had his pro day, and he was in like a helmet and shoulder
Yeah.
pads, and everyone was like, "What is this?" Like, I don't know why they don't all do it, like that. I thought maybe that was going to change kind of going forward and kind
Yeah.
of revolutionize things, but that was probably the most realistic pro day you're ever going to see. That could translate, but look how his career ended up turning out.
I thought that was great. I mean, yeah, he had his other issues, but I did like to see it. I think just for me, it's like, like you said, I mean, I expect you to complete 100% of your passes against air. I expect you to look great out there. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
nobody's kind of swiping at your arm, blitzing you. Maybe you have an assistant coach like fake coming off the edge with a bat. It's like, come on. So,
And typically at the pro days, sometimes there's some variation, but it's usually receivers that you've already been throwing with in your college career. And, some guys may need to pull some players from some other local schools just for bodies. But, the combine is a much more realistic atmosphere when it comes to like, hey, how's a guy going to look in a mini camp or just
yeah,
training camp situation where he's with all these new players and they don't really have timing and, rapport that's already been built. So pro day is really just, they should be on their A game because it's, they're in their home, facility. They're with their players they're used to. It's basically, the every scenario that you could want as a quarterback, comfort wise.
yeah. And I think us as fans and even as former players, we kind of fall for the trap, right? Of like the shiny object of like, oh, what was it, Zach Wilson, right? Where he's
Yeah.
rolling one way and just chuck. Like, dude, I got in the same talk about the offensive lineman who's out of Minnesota. I'll probably butcher his name, but Daniel Falele or
Yeah.
Falele.
Hmm.
And people are saying, oh, he only did 24 reps to me, or oh, he got bull rushed on a play. And I'm like, dude, if I was an NFL GM and I had a chance to draft a guy that was 6'8", 400 pounds, and like sometimes when he blocks people just looks like he's eating, I'm taking that guy every time.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to do you have coaches that you believe in and a training staff? Because, if you can't mold something out of that guy, then I don't know what you're doing.
Right, dude. And that's what I mean. Like sometimes with the quarterbacks, where it's like, I won't lie. Now I did like seeing Jamarcus Russell throw it from his knees 80 yards because I'm like, again, right? I think Malik Willis a little bit of this. If a guy's got that kind of arm strength, or Josh Allen was one of these guys, if they're really zipping the ball like that, we can try to figure it out, right? Like,
Yeah, and it was always everyone always said for basically ever that you can't improve accuracy. You're just kind of stuck with it at that point. And you've seen Josh Allen's probably the best case of that. I don't know if he ever had a 60% season in college.
right.
First year or two with the Bills, again, you saw the flashes, but the accuracy was just not there. And then he develops and, borderline MVP guy now. And so I think just with better coaching coming through the ranks and, some guys just, they may just have bad mechanics that are able to be fixed. And, you kind of take a bet on the guy with the more arm talent because, if you think you have a coaching staff that might be able to unlock some more accuracy out of them and starting to see that, hey, that is a possibility nowadays.
Yeah, dude, I like it. And that's what I liked about that Minnesota kid is like, this kid has only played football since 2016. I'm like, yeah, he may not look as good as a kid who's been playing since Pop Warner, but like, is that kid maxed out? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Let me get this Samoan kid and see what he's got. Like, he looks pretty good for only playing for 6 years. Like,
you can't teach size, and I know Minnesota's done a good job of producing O linemen, but still, I think when you get a guy like that at the next level, when he's not worrying about school and it's just football is his full-time job, I think you can mold him to be whatever type of player you really want him to be.
Yeah, I think that's where the line gets drawn sometimes in sports, especially now as analytics have taken over and people are so, I don't know, overly analytical. It's, oh, this guy's still raw. He's still whatever. But to your point, it's like this kind of like Tariq Woolen. Like, this guy is super tall, super fast, super like, let me figure him out. You know what I mean? Like,
if they have every raw trait that you could possibly want, then it's just, hey, do we have good coaches or not? Do we believe in the people that we're paying, and employing to get the most out of the players? And, I agree. I think, a lot of cases it makes sense to take a bit of a gamble on a guy that, has every single height, weight, speed, length trait that you could possibly want at a certain position.
Yeah. And I think you have to figure it out when that is, or, if you're at the back half of a draft, maybe you don't need that position as much. You take a risk. But speaking of Tariq Woolen, one of the things that got me in trouble with people on Twitter, and I'm curious, I compared him to Kyle Hamilton and basically said, hey, if you like Kyle Hamilton's size and speed, this guy's faster, and he's probably going in the 5th round. Since then, right, he did whatever. I'm seeing people say Tariq Woolen's going in the 3rd round, maybe even 2nd round. There's some crazy guys out there who I won't name that have mocked him in the 1st round. So, yeah, I can't see that happening.
I could see late 2nd to early 3rd. I just think someone's going to, you see the development of the potential there and say, hey, like maybe we don't need to draft a corner like at the end of the 1st. Let's get someone else and then take a development guy that has unlimited potential, in a couple rounds later. Again, it all depends on what the situation is. Like, do you need to win now, or are you a better team that can maybe take more of a risk on a guy that's going to have a higher ceiling down the road?
Yeah, no, we're on the same page, and people got so mad at me about Kyle Hamilton, right? Because I like him. Obviously, I'm wearing a Notre Dame shirt for the people that are listening to this. Big Notre Dame fan, grew up in the area.
I'm wearing the U.
Ah! Dude, I almost shouted you out when that thing was going around on Twitter. Did you see? It's like, what player do you think of when you see this helmet? And it was the Miami helmet. I almost shouted you out.
The first one you think of?
I shouted out Baraka Atkins because he has.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not related, but he has the same last name as me. So I was like,
it's fair enough.
He always said, I'm like, holy crap, that's my name on TV. But no, so Kyle Hamilton, best player in the draft. I won't say he's not. Best safety people have seen in a long time. Won't say he's not. But I just don't think a safety adds much to your team if you take him top 5. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would never take a safety top 5 nowadays. I think back in the day, maybe it made more sense. It is a passing league, but I think if you're going to take a DB in the top 5, it has to be a corner where they could potentially lock down half the field at all times. I just think safeties, you want good safeties, obviously, but there's just too many other positions that provide more value from a game-to-game basis. Like, I wouldn't probably take – you take a D end, potentially like a cornerstone, offensive tackle, quarterback, corner. I want to take any other position inside the top 5, and really like top 10 is kind of pushing it. Again, depending on what the team needs are, how many holes they really have to fill. But certainly, listen, Kyle Hamilton's a great player, but he's not top 5 worthy in my opinion.
I agree. And I think, another position I think that you start to take, in my mind, in the teens and the 20s, used to be running back. I mean, running back has died now, but wide receiver, and there's so many wide receivers in this draft.
Yeah, and I got asked by a couple, it's like, Twitter scouts and writers also, like, hey, who do you think is going to be the top receiver this year and how many first rounders? I don't really know if any are worthy of being a first rounder in this draft. Certainly not in the teens. I'm sure some will be. And, there's some good receivers, but I think this is a class for receivers where there's a lot of depth, but at the top end, it's not as talented in years past. Why would you draft a Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave or someone in the first round when you can get Alec Pierce from Cincinnati or a Christian Watson from North Dakota State or David Bell in the 3rd or so round or later that, I just don't know if any receiver in this draft is going to ever be a dominant number 1. Possibly, but I don't think there's really a clear cut. You don't have like a Julio Jones in this draft or an AJ Green that it's, hey, we've got to get this guy top 10. I think it's just one of those positions that, it's not worth the money because it kind of is a dime a dozen position. And, you've seen so many guys drafted later rounds that ended up being studs and, top of the league nowadays.
No, I agree. And I think people overrate the wide receiver. Like, if I look back, I mean, Rams probably aren't a good choice. But, I mean, if you look at who they're winning with, Cooper Kupp was a 2nd round pick, maybe?
I think so, yeah. I think 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah, shout out to the FCS, Cooper Kupp. 3rd round guy. So, this guy's the MVP. People say he's one of the – I know he wasn't the MVP, but people say he's one of the best wide receivers. 3rd round guy. And then, they've put him with Robert Woods, who I think was a 2nd round guy. I don't know where they got Van Jefferson. Then they brought in some free agents that were big name guys. But again, it comes back to Odell Beckham, 1st round pick. He's on his 3rd team. Allen Robinson now, who they just signed, 1st round pick, maybe 2nd round pick. He's on his 3rd team. Long-winded way of saying, when I look at a lot of Super Bowl champions, I don't see them winning with the Julio Jones, the AJ Greens, the Randy Mosses of the world. It's always these guys that are a little bit later that we didn't think of. I mean, hell, you look at New England, the year they had Randy Moss, he didn't win it.
So, yeah, that's true.
So,
I mean, and, Welker and Edelman were 2 of the best receivers in the league, and especially for their franchise for a long time. And I know, I think what Edelman was like I don't know if was he undrafted or like 6th or 7th round, and I think Welker was undrafted as well.
Welker was undrafted. Edelman
did he get scooped late? I think.
7th round, pick 232.
Yep. So there you go, right there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think, especially, I write for the Bears and talk about that. Everyone's so gung-ho on a wide receiver. Same thing. I mean, look, I think you can get a good guy in the 2nd round, but you can also get guys later. It's one of those positions where if I compare it to something like defensive end, defensive ends that go in the 1st round versus defensive ends that go in the 6th round, I think there's a big difference between them. Yeah. Right? A wide receiver that goes in the 1st round versus one that goes in the 6th round, I don't know. They're probably roughly the same speed. They're probably roughly the same agility, maybe size. There's just something different, right? Maybe they play at a smaller school. But
yeah, and usually the closer to the ball you are, so lineman, quarterback, usually you're not going to make as quick of an impact. That's true from going from high school to college and then college to the NFL. Is
Yeah.
typically it's a bigger learning curve. Physically, that there's usually a bigger difference. The further out you get, that's why you see a lot more running backs or receivers or even sometimes corners like make a quick impact. Again, both going from high school to college and then college to the NFL as well.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you can get good value in this 5th, 6th round for a receiver that could still contribute as a rookie, if you need them to be.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things. I mean, writing a lot of stuff about, linemen, which I really don't like offensive linemen. I just, part of it's from playing defensive line, but I don't know. Just that's my own personal thing. But looking at some of these guys, and I'm critiquing these guys and saying, probably needs to get a little bit better at his pass pro, right? Like, that's a guy that's probably going to take a couple years, right? Like, you rarely see a guy that's a 6th round lineman or an undrafted lineman really click right away. Maybe a couple years later they figure it out. But like, to your point, the speed of the pass rusher is going to be so much different. The sophistication of that pass rusher is going to be so much different. So if you're already just kind of like so at the college level, and some of these guys are coming from smaller schools, I'm just like, that learning curve, to your point, is going to be super steep when you get to the NFL.
And it's easier to make a receiver-friendly scheme, especially in today's game with just how much passing and spread offenses.
Yeah.
It's harder to make like a scheme easier on your linemen. You're just in such a confined space that there's only so much you can really do. You're either going to be dominant up front enough or you're not. And so that, that I think goes into, again, how much more of a curve it is just because it's physical up front and there's a lot more finesse on the outside.
And if I'm watching you struggle with a guy, and this isn't a shot at anybody, I'm just throwing a hypothetical. If I'm watching you struggle with a guy from Vanderbilt, right, who's not an NFL caliber guy,
right,
I'm not too sure you're going to do great against the Calais Campbells and the Aaron Donalds of the world, so it's tough. But yeah, I think wide receiver can go later. Tight end's another position where I don't really know. I think everyone struggles to figure out the value in a tight end. I mean, when you see a guy like Kyle Pitts, it makes a lot of sense. But when you see some of these other guys, I don't know.
Yeah, I love the tight end position, but I agree. I think it's one that you can get so much value, like in the late day 2 to early day 3 range of the draft. There's been so many tight ends that have, been dominant that have kind of gone in that range. I think it's worth paying if a tight end ends up emerging for your franchise. I think it's worth paying to keep him. There's always that argument, with like Travis Kelce or George Kittle. And I remember like going back to Jimmy Graham back in the day with the Saints, like, trying to get paid receiver money when they were franchise tagging him. And majority of his snaps were like in the slot anyway. And, he's leading the team in receiving yards. And, if you have a guy who is serviceable to good as a blocker as well, I think I have no issue making a tight end paid as much as a receiver one. It doesn't happen, but I think they, in a lot of cases, depending on what your offensive system is, typically, they are the featured guy. And but I think it's one of those positions where typically you don't need to draft him early unless you just don't have many holes on your team, and you can get a guy that does have outlier athleticism and size, but there's just so many other good ones that emerge from like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round that it's almost worth waiting on.
I mean, Atlanta took Kyle Pitts, and I mean, look, what did he have, like almost 1,000-yard season? So Kyle Pitts goes 4th overall. What was it? Yeah, 4th overall.
And he's a guy who's, I think, was just talent-wise, size. I think he was worth going in the top 5 to 10. Just for Atlantis, though, I think they had just so many other holes. They probably could have got more value by trading back or picking a different position.
Oh yeah,
but I think Pitts is like one of those rare cases where a tight end is worth.
He was a monster.
Yeah,
first Pro Bowler to. I'm reading it now. First Pro Bowler to make, or first rookie to make the Pro Bowl at the tight end position since Jeremy Shockey. Shout out to Miami there for you. But, almost 70 catches, 1,000 yards, only 1 touchdown. But Atlanta went 7-10. So it's just like, again, you got this guy, and this is how I think about it too, you know, and this is the thing I always run into with Justin Fields, right? Especially this rookie contract only lasts for so long, right? So if you're really trying to maximize the value, Kyle Pitts is a guy who, if he stays healthy at this rate, is going to get paid.
Yep.
Or he's going to eat up a big chunk of somebody's salary cap. You're Atlanta. This was his first year. You went 7-10. You got Marcus Mariota down there. You lost Calvin Ridley because of the gambling stuff. So where are you guys going to go this year? Maybe 8-9, 9, whatever. So now half of his rookie year is gone. Are you really going to be able to get any value out of this guy before you have to pay him a ton of money, or he walks? You know what I mean? So it's just like, or you trade him, I guess, like Mark. It's just, that's how I feel. And I feel that way about Justin Fields now as I look at the Bears in this rebuild mode. And I'm like, all right, this guy already lost a year. You're going to completely rebuild the team. So he's probably going to lose this year. Maybe you get 2 years. I guess you get the fifth option. So you get maybe 3 years to try to win something. It's tough, man. Like,
yeah, I think if you're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, you had to have the plan in place around the next couple of years, how you're going to support him, not just, let's take our lumps and kind of see how it goes. Like, when you have a guy who's going to be your starter on such a cheap contract, you got to go now and try to get as much around him before, the clock starts ticking on when his extension is going to be.
I agree. And, that's one of the things I really liked about Buffalo when they got Allen. I didn't think they'd be able to pull it off, but remember they wanted Antonio Brown. He shot that down. He was like, no chance, which is what I think the Bears might possibly going through behind the scenes and what I expected Buffalo to keep going through. But then Diggs came, and it's like once they got Stephon Diggs, it changed everything, right? And so it's like to see the Bears, and I don't know, I can't speak with knowledge on what they're doing behind the scenes, but not go try to get a game-changing wide receiver for Fields.
And there were a lot in this free agency too. I mean, there's some huge contracts and some trades as well. But there were guys out there that were leaving their current cities, and they're still waiting.
It's tough, man. Here's another funny thing. I'm curious how you think about this. The Devontae Parker trade. So he goes to New England for a 3rd-round pick, I think, and maybe a couple other things. But there's so many people saying, oh, 3rd-round pick's too much for Devontae Parker. He's injury prone. He hasn't produced. And I'm like, guys, you don't know what a 3rd-round pick's going to be. Like, this guy is an NFL wide receiver. Why wouldn't you want that? So how do you feel? Do you think it's better to get picks, or do you get the proven thing?
It really depends on, like, how close are they? Like, if that's the difference, between having them be a playoff team and competing, then go to try to win now. If you're a team, I think that's much further down the road, maybe stack some picks where, take your lumps again for another year. That's a tough one. But again, I think was serviceable the last 2 years. He had a big year in 2019, but his only 1,000-yard year, and was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8 seasons? I don't know if he's worth a 3rd-round pick to me. I think you can get, again, like a Christian Watson or an Alec Pierce, someone else, in this class that you're not going to spend as much money on and probably get similar results, in my opinion. Plus, just much younger. So I think that's the case. I would have probably wanted a better player than Parker if I were to spend a 3rd-round pick, but that's just, my opinion on him.
Yeah, no, it's good to see that different perspective. I think for me, I think he's like getting $5 million a year, which feels dirt cheap for a guy that's been in 8 years. And I don't know, New England never really spends. So to see them go get him, I'm like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. Outside of Moss, I haven't really seen them go big. But, when you talk about drafting a guy, I feel like that's not Belichick's, like, skill set. Like
that is true. I think they're good at drafting in the very late rounds, like identifying talent, between the 6th, 7th, and the free agency. But when it comes to anything above that, yeah, I think that's something that they've always struggled, and
Yeah.
they've always had a small scouting department, which was kind of weird. I think they just now, for the first time, got like a full-time director of scouting
Oh,
for
wow.
the overall department. Um, so we see Belichick starting to delegate, some of his role within that realm. But yeah, it's weird. They do I think the best job in the league at identifying late round guys that can end up being great contributors, but they've really struggled from really in like the day one and day two range on maximizing their value.
Yeah.
Like N'Keal Harry or
Yeah, Harry.
receiver, and trying to think who else. But yeah, they just haven't been a very good drafting team for quite a long time.
They took I remember a while back they took a guy out of Florida who I thought was going to be good. Chad Jackson, maybe might have been his name.
Oh yeah, receiver way back in the day.
And he flopped. And I think just from that point on, it was like Belichick couldn't really figure it out. I want to talk about, we'll get into some team stuff. We'll talk about the NFC West, but there's a thing talking about Fields, talking about rookies, losing in football, right? And getting to that next level. So, you were a competitive guy. I think you played at a really good high school.
Yep.
So you guys were winners. I was successful. Got to Valpo, lost a lot, right? We were one of the worst teams. 1-10 one year, 3-8 another. When you were at Miami, I know it was kind of that like in between stage of, the U was up here and it was kind of starting to middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that Taylor Lewan talked about being a rookie on the Titans team that went 2-14 and just kind of how tough that is. I'm curious, like if you want to talk about that, and I can talk about some stuff, just going from like being used to winning, having this expectation of winning, and then getting to the next level and just losing, and what that feels like.
Yeah, so my high school, Carmel High School, which is just north of Indianapolis. I think we're the largest public school outside of New York in the country now. So like 5,000, over 5,000 kids. My we were nationally ranked by Max Preps all 3 at certain points of all 3 years that I was on varsity. Finished state champions my junior year, 4th in the country from Max Preps, 8th in USA Today. So yeah, winning was the expectation, and I'm sure like you and most athletes, losing sucks a lot more than like the good feeling you get from winning. It's you hate losing even more. So then getting to Miami, historically, blue chip program, but wasn't that good when I was there. We had a 6-7 year and like a 7-6 year, and coach got fired. Lost 58-0 to Clemson and got fired the next day. And, it's embarrassing. And able to leave on a high note, won our only bowl game in the last like 15 or 16 years. So haven't won one since then. So I like to think it was, because I'm not.
That's all you. That's all you.
But yeah, I mean, it's tough when you have those expectations and, as an athlete and, having so much success growing up, and, it's, you don't get used to it, so to speak, but I think if it happens long enough, you get a little bit kind of desensitized to it. Now, I think, I didn't play in the NFL, you didn't play in the NFL, but I would think it'd be a lot easier at that level when you're getting paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. It's like, okay, it's a job at that point. And, you're still playing for the love of the game, but it's just the motivations are different when you get to that level. Yeah. So, obviously everyone wants to win and be the best player they can be. But I think when you're getting paid that much, you probably don't care quite to the extent that, if you lost games in high school or college. But how was it for you? I'm sure early on it was really tough. Was it something you just kind of got used to and just cared about your individual performance, or was it something that always bothered you like throughout your time there?
Yeah, that's funny. Because you don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, as long as I get mine,
Right.
There's definitely a thought of that goes through your head, right? It's like, I don't suck, but that's not really the best way to look at it, dude. I don't know. It was just tough. We took a lot of ass whoopings out there, and our coach got fired. That was a really funny thing too. I remember went home for Thanksgiving break. ESPN announced our coach got fired. It like came across the bottom ticker,
Mhm.
And we're all texting each other, oh, coach is fired. Wow, this is crazy. What's next?
That's kind of weird to find out that way. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
like on a break, like that's tough timing. But I think for us, we all kind of knew or thought it was going to happen. But then the next morning at the team meeting, the AD walks in and announces it. So at least we all heard before ESPN heard.
Dude, so ours gets even weirder, right? So no, that the AD didn't tell us. So then we come back from Thanksgiving break. Coach sends out like an email or phone call, whatever. Hey, we got a meeting. It was kind of like the Brian Kelly thing in a way. Everybody come meet, this time.
Mm-hmm.
So we go and meet, and he's standing there in front of us, and we're all kind of looking like, didn't this guy get fired? You know what I mean? And he like announces, hey guys, I've been fired. Such and such is going to run the program. Now the AD is going to come in and speak, and then the AD is like, yeah, we're conducting this search. Yada, yada, yada. But dude, weird times. I remember, God, we lost a game so bad once to this team, Jacksonville, which I don't even know if it has a football program anymore. But supposedly what I heard through the rumor mill was that ESPN called down to our box to ask if the score was accurate before reporting it.
Oh
We
my
lost
God.
84-7.
That's rough.
Dude, I've never seen 84 points scored in a football game before.
I don't think I have either.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous loss. But to your point about the NFL, that brings me to another thing Taylor talked about, which is there are guys like that, right, who say, and he called it bad culture, but he's like, we're midway through November, we had won one game, and guys were like, where are we going on vacation type of stuff, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think, no, it definitely gets to that point, and guys are probably just looking to get to their next deal. But I think for rookies, and I watched this with Justin Fields, he's coming in, he's talking a big game, right? Oh, I've never lost. And it's like, buddy, this isn't Ohio State anymore. You know what I mean? This isn't, you have all the best players, like,
right. Yeah,
and so to watch him kind of go through this progression of like unflappable confidence to get to a point where he's like, I don't know, I've never lost this much in my life. It's like, I feel like that's where the real growth starts. And it's like, do you become that guy that's just, I'm going to get mine and who cares about the team? Or do you kind of stay that I never want to lose guy? And I don't know, man. I don't know what you do. I think everybody's different, but for sure, if any of my teammates are listening, I was never that guy, but
I hope not.
Yeah. But at certain points, I was probably that guy that's like, if I just get a couple sacks or do my thing, like, doesn't matter if we lose. But
and I think it's one thing, like, you have your internal feelings. It's like maybe you really care, maybe you don't. But like what you said, like guys just talking about their next vacation. I think if it's right after a loss and in the locker room and people are like dancing around or like things like that, that's what always rubbed me the wrong way, was like still celebrating or having a good time like immediately like after a loss. Like I get it, like during the week you want to do your thing, and it's college or it's at that level like NFL, you still want to go out if you're a young guy. But there's people like joking around like in the locker room right after a loss. Like that's the point where it bothered me a lot. It's like, what are you doing? Like, if you don't want to be here, then get out of here. Or if you think it's like a joke. So that's kind of where I would draw the line, is like, hey, if you want to talk about your vacation, great. Like do it at film the next day or practice on Monday or whatever. But
no, I agree. I think that's the biggest thing. And I was having this talk with someone about, coming back to Josh Allen. I'm like, I think that helped him more than it hurt him, because I'm like, these guys, and you're kind of in a similar vein, like these guys like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and you, right? We'll throw you in there. You guys come from these my high school is okay, but you guys come from these high schools that like never lose almost, right? Mm-hmm. And so then those guys then go to programs where they almost never lose again, and they win all the awards and they do whatever, and then they go to the shittiest team in the NFL.
And outside of like punter or no, outside of like kicker, mentally like quarterbacks, right in line with it or maybe just below, as far as like, some guys just don't bounce back if their confidence gets shot.
Yeah.
Like other positions, it's typically not as big of an issue. Like maybe a receiver drops a pass, that's open and it gets in his head. But besides that, it's like quarterback is so much of a mental position that, do you just panic or kind of just lose all your confidence if you go through a season like that? You see like a Peyton Manning who, as a rookie, I believe still has the record for most interceptions and then one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But then for every one of him, there's probably a dozen others that, they were never able to right the ship and, get things turned around.
Yeah, that old Cleveland Browns jersey with like
Yeah.
on it. Yeah. Well, and then you think about the mess that gets created. Like I remember Brady Quinn, again, shout out to Notre Dame, was like, I played with 3 different coordinators in 3 years. And it's like, because that's the other thing teams are doing, like, oh, fire this guy, hire this guy. So there's no consistency. I think it's a really weird thing to see now. I got it before when you had guys like Bradford and Stafford that were still getting these big contracts, but it's like rookie quarterbacks are so cheap now that it's like, why not give that guy time? Like, not a great example because they went to the Super Bowl, but I put out there like Joe Burrow's been sacked over 100 times in 2 years.
Yeah, that what I was gonna say. Like, why if you're gonna invest or have that top quarterback, I think of Andrew Luck, which his career got cut short because he was battered every single play basically. And Burrow, he's lucky he bounced back this year, from that ACL and still was, getting hit constantly. If you're gonna draft a quarterback that high, you got to put a wall around him first, then get him some good receivers that are probably a little bit older, to give him a shot. Because otherwise, like, you don't even know what you have if most of the time, if there's nothing else around him.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a really interesting way. And I'm not sure why the NFL has gotten this way, but it was like, you just see these rookies playing right away now on really bad teams. And then it's just like, oh, this guy doesn't have it. Like Trevor. I mean, Trevor went through hell down in Jacksonville last year.
Yeah, about as bad of a situation as you could ever get into for a rookie quarterback. And then everyone's calling him a bust. It's like, dude, like, Urban Meyer was his coach. Like, I mean, we could talk a whole segment on that. Had nothing, like, not much to throw to, not much of an O-line, some decent running backs, but that only goes so far.
Yeah. And then his best running back, like Urban was like benching the guy, like wasn't playing him. It was just bizarre. But yeah, I mean, I'm like, you look at that guy and say he's a bust when it's like you watch his tape at Clemson, you watch him and it's like he's a generational talent at the position, right? So it's like, how much of it is him versus like not setting him up for success, right? And
the good thing that what Cincinnati did, now they need to keep building the O-line, and they've addressed it a little bit this offseason, but they put some really good receivers around Burrow. So he had a trio of really talented guys to throw to. So at least, he didn't have much time to throw, but at least he had guys that were getting open or were going to win 50-50 balls most of the time for him.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, that's another one where it's like, yeah, hey, look, if they put him with Sewell Penai, do they make the Super Bowl? I don't know. But, Jamar Chase was a monster. Like,
Yeah, I think that's a situation. You saw the success that they had together in college and the chemistry. I think that was a good pick, in my opinion. But yeah, I'd like to see them just keep stacking on the O-line now for the foreseeable future. And it's a game now where it's just what team's going to score more points or have the last possession in a lot of these games. And you don't want to disregard your defense, but it's I'm taking a top O lineman versus a top defensive player. As long as I have Burrow to just stack around him.
No, I agree. I think you have to. And I really hope, it looks like they've made some moves to get Burrow a couple linemen. I think, let me look at who people.
Lel Collins.
Yeah, Lel Collins, who is pretty good. If I look at a mock draft, people say they're going to take Boye Mafe, edge rusher.
From Minnesota.
Yeah, and then second round, Dylan Parham from Memphis. So another lineman. Parham's a guy that I like and would like to see on the Bears. Just don't know if they're going to do it. And this mock has Christian Watson to the Bears, which I'd be excited about.
He'd be a good fit for Fields.
They got your Colts picking up George Pickens and
second round.
Yeah, you guys don't have a first round pick, huh?
Yeah.
So you had George Pickens in the first or second round, and then Abraham Lucas, a tackle out of Washington State, in the third round. But all right, so I want to talk about NFC West. We'll kind of evaluate the teams there. So I'm guessing everybody's a football fan, but for the people that aren't, NFC West, Super Bowl champs, Los Angeles Rams. Then you've got your Arizona Cardinals, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. I think if we look in terms of the playoffs, Rams and 49ers went the furthest. So I think that's where I'm going to start.
Yeah, so with the Rams, like, what holes do they have? They were clicking on all cylinders, and OBJ got injured in the Super Bowl, but then they addressed that, and man, I don't really know where else you do go.
So here I'm going to pull up. I'll share it with you. The Rams free agency tracker. These are all the people they've signed. So we're looking at Bobby Wagner. They extended Stafford.
Top of the country or in the NFL. Allen Robinson was a great pickup.
Riley Dixon, a punter. Okay. Brandon Powell, Joe Noteboom. So just offensive linemen. Again, I don't know offensive linemen enough.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with these linemen, but I mean,
and then
you can never have enough.
And then some of these guys, Matt Gay, kicker is probably their kicker. Probably a depth linebacker, Walford, and then a safety, who I've also never heard of.
Yeah.
Then who's down here? Troy Reader, who I like. He's a good linebacker. Demby, I don't know. And then Odell Beckham. Did they re-sign Beckham yet?
I don't believe they have.
Yeah.
I think it's worth bringing back still, as long as the price is reasonable. But, he's going to be out most of the season.
Yeah. So these are the guys that I guess they've lost. So Von Miller went to the Bills on a massive contract.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Woods went to the Titans. He's recovering from that ACL. Darius Williams, not too familiar with. Some of these other – Johnny Hecker, good punter.
Hecker was good. Yep.
Corbett, probably pretty good. All these other guys, no idea. So, all right, so we come back up to the guys they signed. And, I mean, signing Wagner just feels like cheating. Like, I don't know.
No, I agree. I think when you have Aaron Donald up front and then Wagner to clean up anything that gets past him, that's hard combo to beat. Stafford, I think, proved that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he really just needed a supporting cast around him, and look what he did, having that.
I agree. And, I mean, he looks like, if they make another Super Bowl run, this guy might start making a case for the Hall of Fame. I think, obviously, when you look at the draft, they don't have any picks in the first 3 rounds. So there's not much they're going to be able to add there. But, again, you've got –
Do they need to?
I'm like, you've got Aaron Donald, you got Bobby Wagner. I think they've got Leonard Floyd as one of the pass rushers. I forget who the other edge rusher is on that depth chart. So it's just like they're stacked on defense.
And I like their philosophy of, hey, we have such a good roster. Let's do everything to keep winning right now. Let's trade these draft picks to get some other players in that, while we have this window of a couple of years potentially with Stafford and some of their other core guys, let's do everything to, get veteran players that aren't going to have a learning curve and we know for sure are going to contribute right away when they step into our team.
That's right. Yeah. No, I think you're spot on with that. And Jalen Ramsey, I forgot he's there.
Mm-hmm.
Running back, you got Cam Akers. I mean, it's kind of running back by committee. I think they'll be okay. You got Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson. They've also got this guy Tutu Atwell, who was like
from Louisville.
Yeah,
speedy slot guy.
So
returning to something.
Wouldn't surprise me if he becomes something. And then you got Tyler Higbee at tight end, who's pretty solid. And there's a big receiver, Ben Skoranek, who I like. He went to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Had a lot of drops last year, but he's a big body guy.
Probably a good special teams guy.
Yeah.
Or size too, which is rare.
Yeah, dude. He's a monster, at least in terms of his size. But won't talk about him too much because I don't know how much he'll play. But if we look at the Rams, 12-5 last year, they won the division. We look at the guys they added. I guess we go back to some of the guys they lost. Okay, Von Miller, sure. He played in the Super Bowl for sure. Woods wasn't in the Super Bowl. Hecker probably played, but punter, okay. I'm guessing all these guys were starters. Let's just say it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Do we really think they lost that much?
Not really. I mean,
that's how I didn't like to.
Yeah. I mean, I think they gained more than they lost.
Yeah, and I think if keeping Von Miller meant you had to pay him $100 million or whatever Buffalo paid him.
Yeah, I'd rather get at this stage. I'd rather get Bobby Wagner anyway. So
yeah, and what did he get? And then that's funny. We're talking about Diggs. I'm looking at this article. It says Diggs recruited Von Miller to the Bills. Like Diggs changed everything for that franchise.
He's been incredible.
6 years, $120 million for Von. So yeah, I mean, I'd let him walk for that. Okay, so Rams 12 games last year. Does that feel reasonable? I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's at a minimum. I could see 13 or 14 in the regular season. I mean, just another year with Stafford and full offseason, kind of him being the established leader now. Yeah, I think they can improve on that. Not sure if they'll win the Super Bowl, but I think at least just regular season, they could probably expect another win or two.
I'm looking at this strength of schedule. It says the Rams have the hardest schedule next year. So
I feel like that's always so much tougher to judge at the NFL level, though, versus college. And it's
teams change so much.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, 49ers, this is an interesting one with, expected that Trey Lance is going to be taking over at this point, but still haven't been able to get rid of Garoppolo. I know he's recovering from that, I think it was shoulder surgery, and, maybe they'll have him in camp and as an insurance policy or try to dish him sometime next season. Yeah, I mean, if you're the GM, what do you do with him? You just status quo or still try to get rid of him in the offseason?
I would try to get rid of him because I think it comes back to what we were talking about in terms of a quarterback's mentality. So,
yeah, you don't want Lance looking over his shoulder if he's named the starter.
Right.
When he is.
And you've got a guy in Garoppolo that's like, hey, I don't think I did anything to lose the job, right? Like, so I think you got to ship him. But yeah, I think the shoulder hurts him. I'm trying to look at this team. I mean, these guys they re-signed. 49ers are interesting to me in more ways than one. I think one because of all the coaches they lost, right? They lost their OC to Miami. And what did they lose? They lost their coach to Miami. They lost their special teams coordinator to the Bears. Wes Welker went to the Dolphins.
Yeah, that's right.
And then a couple other guys aren't coming. And then they brought in Anthony Lynn as the assistant head coach. Nick Sorensen's coming in from Jacksonville. So, I mean, they're adding some guys, some names I don't know that might be good. Hey, your guy, Leonard Hankerson, offered the job of wide receivers coach. So another U guy replacing Wes Welker. But so I look at, okay, these are the guys they kept. But if I go to the guys they lost, which are where? Signed with unrestricted.
Yeah, you just like Raheem Mostert. I just saw if you scroll up.
Oh, I miss it.
Just went to Miami.
Yeah, these are all the guys they lost. They lost a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so Trent Cannon, whatever. But yeah, Mostert went to Miami. Arden Key went to the Jaguars.
A couple of those didn't extend.
Lake and Tomlinson went to the Giants. Kawhi Williams, the Broncos. Jaquiski Tartt's a guy that I was hoping the Bears would go for. I'm not sure if they will or won't. Are they signed with? Do they not do their departures? Oh, that's lame. Okay, so yeah, so they didn't do all their departures, but we know for sure Mostert's gone. These are the guys they brought back.
And now is Debo going to stay? You see all the rumors coming out with,
That's
is he
huge.
unhappy? Are they unable to get the extension done? Is he just trying to create some leverage or some drama to get some more money out of him? Because that'd be, if you're going to start Trey Lance, you need some weapons around him, and
Yeah,
you don't want to
yeah,
lose that one. I mean, you have Kittle, but Debo's one of the best in the league, and he can do so much too that can help, not just from a receiving standpoint, but jet sweeps, putting him in motion, things like that, that probably take a lot more pressure off of a young quarterback than just a normal receiver would.
yeah. So I mean, if we look at this depth chart, right, you assume Trey Lance as QB1.
Yeah, I like Kyle Juszczyk a lot, though. He's fullback, but they use him in the passing game a lot, just
Yeah.
as a safety net.
You got Elijah Mitchell who came on, he was okay. You got Debo, you got Brandon Ayuk, and then behind those guys, you don't really. I mean, Jawan Jennings, Trent Sherfield,
Yeah,
Travis
Benjamin's
Benjamin.
played. Yeah, another U guy. He's played for a long time,
Yeah,
but more of a returner now.
I think
So,
this is another one of those teams, right, where it's like very unique in how they use guys, right? Like Kittle is a lot of their wide receiver one. Then you've got
mhm.
Debo kind of playing this running back wide receiver hybrid. Um, Ayuk is okay. I mean, in my opinion, the 49ers have missed on a lot of wide receivers as well. I don't think Ayuk's
Yeah,
panned out. Dante Pettis, who they took a while back, didn't pan out.
right.
Um, I don't know. It's really interesting that they get so much out of their guys, right? Because it just you
Well,
look at this roster and nobody
they
really.
got good coaching. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
see guys getting head coaching jobs elsewhere, and that leads into it. So I'm surprised at the run they ended up having this past season.
yeah. I
Just
agree. And
looking
then
at them on paper.
yeah, and you look on defense. I mean, I think their defense is really what won them a lot of games. I think
Yeah,
starting on the D line, you got Armstead, Bosa,
It's a
both
tough
great.
combination.
Fred Warner is one of the best middle linebackers. Dre Greenlaw's great. Probably their secondary is where it gets a little weak, looking at Ambry Thomas, Kwan Williams, Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tart. But that front seven is probably one of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, I think just what can they add to compete with a team like the Rams, who arguably has the best receiving core, one of them. That's probably one of their main glaring holes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the 49ers, they were 10-7. What do we think? Do we feel like they?
I could see a bit of a draw. I mean, I like Trey Lance a lot. I think he's going to be really good in the league. It's just tough. He only started one season in college and at a small school level. North Dakota State's by far the best program at the FCS. It's like playing for Alabama, where you have a lot of NFL talent surrounding you, especially if you're a young quarterback. That every single week there's just a huge discrepancy in what you have versus what you're playing against. So, given that just the one season, and then he is young too. He left early, so there could be some growing pains. But I do think that he's got a really rare combination of size, athleticism, and arm strength that I think is going to end up being very good in this league. But I could see a bit of a drop off for the next year or so until he's more settled in.
No, I think I agree with you as well that his style is unique. It's a bit more of the modern, you know what I mean? The modern style. He's a little bit RPO. He's a little bit spread.
Mm-hmm.
I do like North Dakota State. I think they should probably make a jump up to FBS,
Yeah.
but it'll be curious to see because he's not that. I don't know. He's not the typical NFL QB. But then you look at the guys he's with, and you kind of wonder like,
How
does
much
that
did
help?
they
Right?
mask or
Does that make Debo even more dangerous when he's with a quarterback that can also run versus a pass only guy? Does it make Elijah Mitchell, these guys better? I think that's really where we're going to find out, right? Like if he
Mhm.
really makes a difference in terms of that. I think that's huge.
Yep.
So I'm trying to. There's this thing out there. I'm trying to find it where they do these like really nerdy things where they'll do like an expected win percentage, and then the team either like outperforms or underperforms. But I can't find it. But I think 10-7. 10-7 to me feels like they overachieved last year.
Yeah, I think they'll be kind of right on the cusp of the playoffs. I do think they have enough on D, and they're going to win games, but I could see kind of around 8 to 9 regular season wins. Yeah, I don't know if 9's pushing it. Maybe 7, kind of in that 7 to 9 range, most likely.
I think that's where I see them too. And I think they probably finish in the bottom half of the division. I mean, we'll talk about the Cardinals next time, but I think the Cardinals are probably still the number 2 team. The question with them, it turns into playoffs, right? And
right.
Kyler Murray, whether or not he's sticking around,
or they got to pay his ridiculous ask, or that's a interesting conversation to get into as well.
Yeah, it just I don't know. We'll talk about it. So we're gonna, for the last 4 minutes here, 5 minutes, we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna do some things that are like the craziest questions people were asked at the combine. I'm not gonna do.
There's always some interesting ones.
I'm not gonna do the real weird ones, but we'll do a couple. So all right, here's one.
I was gonna even just start this off that so many questions that are asked at the combine are like illegal in any job industry you're in. But it's like, who's going to tell or like file a lawsuit against the league or potential future employers that they're trying to get in. So they get away with so much that, you just can, and they leak the Wonderlic, which that's a whole nother, legality issue that comes out every year. So I don't know. I got a lot of opinions just on how the NFL operates, but it is super interesting to hear a lot of the questions that, do come out of it.
It's a little crazy, so I'm going to try to keep it as like PG-13-ish as possible.
Yeah.
So we'll kick off with this one. What team do you pick when you play Madden, and why?
Well, for one, I'm an NCAA football guy, so I still have my old PS3 with like NCAA 14. And I know they're coming out with a new game, I think, in a year. But Madden, growing up, I was always a Titans guy. Back when I was like younger and had Madden, loved Steve McNair, and then when they also had Vince Young a couple years, so it was always fun having like a running quarterback. I'd say the one game, I think it was Madden, was 04 that Vic was on the cover, and he was like by far the best player. I think that was like the one year where, I wanted to play with the Falcons just because how dominant he was. But, outside of that, I was always a Titans guy. And did you play with the Bears, or did you, just go with like individual players you liked? What was kind of your MO?
Yeah. Gosh, when I played competitive with people, we always did this stupid thing where it was like 3 randoms and you pick one of the 3, You ever do that?
Yeah.
I've also said I loved college football, and I'm glad it's coming back. I think it's a much more fun game. The team I play with, sometimes I play with the Bears. A team I really like playing with now is probably, and I play it so frequently. I really like playing with Cleveland, honestly. Really great stuff you can do there if you can run the ball, so you can have a good time there. And Baker's okay. So I'd probably go with Cleveland. If I couldn't beat Cleveland, I'm always going with the Bears, but it's tough. Bears have their issues.
Yeah. One question that my former teammate, I remember Braxton Berrios, got asked at the combine a couple of years back is, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin?
Okay. Bitcoin.
And so this was like 4 years ago too. So, I mean, it was like starting to come up at that point, but it wasn't on like the news every single day like you see it like on the stock shows and stuff. So it's kind of an interesting time.
We probably could have made some guys rich, man, if you told them like, I would buy it now. Bitcoin's interesting to me because I have a hard time understanding it when people talk about it like replacing the US dollar as a currency. Um,
Mhm.
but as far as being like a speculative instrument or a financial asset, I can grasp it and understand it. It's something that I definitely wish I would have put some money in, seeing as how it's just like skyrocketed. But
Yeah,
there's a lot, I'll say this about it. There's a lot of people out there who just feel real sketchy that are pushing it. And I think that
that
makes it hard for me to get into it.
that too. So I am a crypto guy, and I'm in a handful of different, I guess, projects, so they
Okay.
call it. I don't see it ever being like, or at least for a long time, like a currency and like replacing the dollar, like you said. But I see it a lot more as in the ones that I get into are like legit companies, like software type companies or fintech that just utilize blockchain technology. So either changing something that's already um, happening in traditional finance and kind of making it more efficient. I think those are the things that make more sense to me, or where I feel more
Yeah.
comfortable putting money behind versus like your, they call it like your shit coins, like your
Yeah.
like
Doge and
Doge or Shiba or whatever, all that stuff. So I look for things that are like more run like a legit company that are within the crypto realm, but it's, they're just utilizing like blockchain to make certain day to day things more efficient or easier, or what have you.
no, that makes a lot more sense to me.
Mm.
And I agree. I mean, I think that's true. And then yeah, you see a lot of it was like pump and dumps on Reddit. Like people would say,
Yeah.
oh, this coin, everyone gets into it. But
So yeah, for me, I treat it like I'm not a trader. I treat it like I would do with stocks. Like, hey, is this something I could hold for a couple years, and I think it's going to grow. But yeah, it's too much like for me to want to trade constantly and follow like by the hour, like so many other people are doing.
no, I agree. People go nuts. But I get it. I mean, it's made a lot of people rich, so
Yeah.
I get it. All right, we'll do one more, maybe two more. I'll do one, you can do one. So there's this question out here, which is if you were trying to kill someone, would you use a gun or a knife? How are you feeling on that one?
Ooh, I mean, I got a couple. Do I get a silencer?
You're like Tom Clancy or something here.
Yeah, shit. Or I'm thinking, like Mark Wahlberg in The Departed, walking
Oh
in with like
yeah,
a
yeah,
hazmat suit on.
yeah, yeah.
I might go with that just because I know, like, probably a little bit less messy. For one, two, you never know with a knife. You got to get a lot closer. What if
True.
might be more of a struggle? You might get some of your DNA on them. I've thought all this out,
I
obviously.
can
So
tell. Yeah.
that's yeah. I'd probably do a gun just because I think if I need to kill them, that's probably the I can ensure it's going to happen if that's the route I choose. So
Yeah. No, I would go gun too, and I base it a lot of what you said, but I also feel like I hear less stories of people surviving getting shot versus like surviving getting stabbed. Like I think like Paul Pierce got stabbed and survived. So
yeah,
I'm like, you know, so I'm like, if I'm trying to kill this person, I want to be successful. It feels like gun has a higher success rate. So
yeah. I hate to even say this, but it's like is there like a super personal? Like I feel like stabbing someone is just so much like personal. It's like, dude, that's a
yeah,
bad way to go, man. Like,
I agree. I agree. Yeah, if you're stabbing somebody, like you've probably been like building that rage, like you've been ready
yeah,
to get him. All
yeah. You
right,
don't
you got.
just
I was
randomly
just you
stab
got one
someone.
more. You got one more.
One more, man. God, this is tough. Let's see. Um, we talked about like on I think the first one, what something we would buy. Um, let's see. Would you rather play your whole career at a minimum contract but be on a Super Bowl contender, or would you rather be one of the highest paid players in the league but never have a winning season?
Gosh, man, that I feel like that is really the conundrum for some players.
Yeah,
I think I would take the minimum and win a lot because I think you probably can't make up all the money you lost, but I think being a three-time, four-time champion and
hmm
the minimum is a lot of money still compared to the average American.
yeah. I think 705 $725 next year, if I'm not mistaken, for a rookie.
Yeah. So look, if I'm making 700 a year, and I think the average American makes like 60K, like
Yeah,
I'm doing all right.
well,
And
yeah.
then maybe I'll do like some book tours or TV shows or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe try to do the Strahan thing, even though he was a really good player, and like make some extra money that way on the back end. So I think that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to answer that question if you know how long the career is going to be as well. But I agree too. I think I'm such a competitor that getting paid, you're at your worst season or your rookie season's gonna be 700,000. As of today, it's like, man, like at some point, it's kind of the law of diminishing returns, and I'm not like a real materialistic guy anyway. I just want to live in a decent place, and anything else is kind of icing on the cake. But yeah, I think just to have those experiences of being on a championship contender, that's hard to replace. And like you said, you probably open up a lot of doors
Yeah.
post career, with that.
Yeah, man. I think about like everywhere you go, right? You don't have to be an asshole about it, but like people would refer to you as like Super Bowl champion so and so. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Where you ring around.
yeah, yeah. So it's like I think that goes a lot further than like highest paid. So you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, then probably more people hate you just because of that. No,
yeah,
no matter
yeah,
how good of a person you are.
yeah. Dude, you watch, and we'll wrap. You watch so many of those guys, like the A-Rods of the world, like try so hard to get a ring when it's all
Mhm.
over, and it's like, yeah, the money's not as fulfilling as the actual winning.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have your guys kind of go on their like championship tour, so to speak, where they're trying to jump from like team to team at the end to just on a minimum salary just to see if they can, close out with a ring or not. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough.
Great. All right, man. We are back on the system. We're gonna do this weekly. Get these back for the people. So we're next time we'll hit on the Cardinals and the Seahawks, who just lost Russell Wilson, and it sounds like they're trying to deal DK Metcalf. So more fun stuff to talk about. You got anything going on this week with your guys for the draft?
Not much, just more so on my end, just kind of getting prepared now, looking a lot more into the depth charts now that free agency is really slowing down, and probably to be some more transactions, obviously, but easier to keep track of at this point, and kind of really just get our plan in place on where's the best for each guy's individual situation, but not much else going on besides that.
Nice. For anybody that follows me here on Bears Wire, we got some articles coming out soon. I'm just kind of laying out more prospects. I mean, look, there's a lot of guys in this draft. You follow the big accounts, they talk about the same 30 guys. There's more than 30 guys that are going to get drafted. So those articles will come out. You guys can learn some more names and some guys that might get their name called and end up in a Bears uniform.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you guys listening, and looking forward to keep doing this every week.
Awesome. All right, Austin. We'll give them another one next week. Talk to you later, man.
Sounds good, man. Thanks.